We're waiting for it to go on. Just 1 second. All right, great. All right. So we're investigating into the stories of Rabbi Nachman that we spoke about before, a lot of deep mysteries that Rabbi Nachman cloaked within these stories. And many of the stories, as we're going to see, kind of like tie in with each other in the most amazing ways. And it's my belief, and actually many people, many other people, who see that they all have to do with the end of days. Of course, all of the focus of the tzaddikim was always about fixing the Shekhinah, bringing back the divine presence, mainly the main redemption, the Messiah and the redemption. We're all very, very interested in that. So we're investigating these stories, and a lot of the stories has a connection. We did the Master of Prayer. We did the Lost Princess. And now we're going to start this other amazing story. Story number 3 is called The Cripple. Now, just to recap on the Lost Princess, about the Golden Mountain, the Pearl Castle, since we went through Shavuos, we saw that in the story there was this shift. First, that the Lost Princess was in the dark castle, the place of evil, and then she shifted to the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle. So we were discovering the shift, and it could be the personal shift is up when you're yearning and yearning and yearning until the point where the yearning is done, and then the journey starts. And then there's another point in terms of the macro, in terms of the history of creation. So in the macro sense, I looked at it actually, and it occurred to me that the shift of that story was the giving of the Torah. When we received the Torah, that was the cure for mankind, the modern cure. Many Kabbalists have told me that's the modern cure for mankind, okay? As opposed to the old cure, which is basically the school of hard knocks, meaning you do evil and you get messed up. You do good, you get rewarded, right? It was kind of like but it was all trial and error. No one really knew until the Torah came and says, okay, this is the system. You follow the system and there'll be blessings for the entire world. And so that was the way. Now, the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle is the Torah itself. It says, listen to this, where is Hashem hidden? He's hidden in the Torah. Of all places to hide, you'd think the Torah would be the place where he would be revealed. But no, the Torah is the place to find the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And the letters of the Torah, if you look in the whole technique of meditation of the Baal Shem Tov, that when you have to make the letters to shine, Tzohar Taseh L'Teva, as a meditative, all your words of Torah and all your prayer, all that you feel is the letters, actually the crowns of the letters. It's like your golden mountain. To let them to shine, you have to shine with a light. And the Pearl Castle are the crowns of the letters. So a lot is going to go into that, but just to give you just another overview or another take on what the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle is, that we have to seek our neshama. We have to seek our connection to Kodesh Baruch Hu in the Torah itself. Okay, now, before we start to cripple, okay, I've got to give you a little introduction because it comes actually from another story, the last of the classic stories of Rabbi Nachman, known as the 7 beggars. Oh, okay, so the 7 beggars was an amazing story. I'm just going to give you to the just, real briefly. Really, we're going to go over it later on, God willing, by Sukkot's time, because that's what is it about. It's an amazing story about these 2 kids that get lost in the forest. I don't want to get into how they ended up meeting each other. We're both lost in the forest. We have no place to go, and they're wandering through the forest. This boy and this girl, and they come across successively 7 beggars. Okay. And the 7 beggars are wandering through the forest, and they always have a meeting with the beggars. The beggars give them some bread, and then they say, you guys should be like me. He blesses the kids that they should be like him. And every single one of the successive beggars has a blemish of some kind, going literally from head to toe. Like the first beggar was blind. They noticed he was blind. Don't ask how he's moving around the forest. The next beggar was deaf. The next beggar had a speech impediment, a crooked neck, a hunchback. The 6th beggar had no hands. And the last beggar, that they met in the forest had no feet. Okay, it's a very significant concept. But then Rabbi Nachman goes through the story of how these couple came to civilization. They became of age. They hung out with all the other beggars because that was where their lifestyle was. And then there was like, hey, some of the beggars suggested you guys should get married. So they made a big wedding feast. And every single day of that wedding feast of the 7 days, one of the beggars reappeared and gave them the blessing that you should be like me. And of course, they're confused. Why should we want to be like you? You're deaf, you're blind, but right? And he says, you think, the first beggar said, you think that I am blind, but no, I can see so beyond this world. And this world is like it's insignificant to me. In other words, I have superpower eyes. In any case, each one of these beggars, all the way up to the 6th beggar who had no hands, he really had superpower in his hands. He could rescue the queen in the water castle, which like, okay, what's a water castle, right? Yeah, I've been to there, sure, right? So in any case, Rabbi Nachman there doesn't end the story with the 7th beggar. The 7th beggar has no legs. He doesn't end the story. It just 6th beggar, that's it. And you're like, oh, what about the 7th beggar? No. So he hints to it actually. I always thought it myself, but I saw Rabbi Kaplan says, here, this story could be the 7th beggar. Now, the 6th beggar is Mashiach ben Yosef, the Messiah, son of Joseph. Incredible powers in the hands. And the Mashiach ben David is I would say, or the way that the trend is, but we're going to see kind of different ideas, is the beggar with no feet. Okay, because he must have incredible powers in his feet, but feet represent something really amazing, as we're going to see as we go through this story. So basically, that 7th beggar, that the story in Rabbi Nachman does not end, we're going to see here, this is the 7th beggar, and the 7th beggar is the Messiah. Okay, so let's start here on the pages that I sent to you, the 3rd story of Rabbi Nachman, called the Cripple. So it's once there was a wise man. I hope he was. Okay. Once there was a wise man. Before he died, he summoned his sons and his family, and he told them his last dying words, right? His last dying words. He said, water trees, right? You must water trees, right? Not get your knee off my chest, right? You remember Get Smart episodes where Get Smart was leaning on the guy who's about to die. What did he say, Max? He told me to get my knee off his chest. You remember that? It was like, whoa, that dates us, doesn't it? In any case, this wise man who had all of his family around him on his deathbed, his last words were, you must water trees. You may also earn a living, and right, in other ways, but you must also be careful to water trees. With that, the wise man died, leaving behind sons. So you got to think about, what is this watering trees? And it's very important. Right, Nachman wants to make sure he shoves it in your face. Now, when I have a group of rabbis that I study with, and we're studying the esoteric text, the Eitz Chaim, together. The Otzrot Chaim is like an abridged. We're going through that with the pair commentary. And the commentary, at a certain point, he explained watering trees. What is it? Amazing. He says, our energy, when we use our energy for good things, we do good deeds, we pray, we learn Torah, right? We send up what we call Maim Nukavin in Hebrew. That means feminine waters. We send up these waters of yearning, a yearning to connect. So we send up this yearning to connect with our deeds, our prayers, our wishes, our thoughts. And that in turn goes up layers and layers and layers and layers to the highest of the cosmic realms, that creates a connection in the cosmic realm. And that in turn will bleed water, actually, really, the water now. is what we call chasadim ugvurot. It bleeds down these chasadim ugvurot, which means these energies of kindness and energies of discipline that come out as water, and they water the trees. The trees are the spherotic realms that all and eventually bleed down to here consciousness. We're all after higher levels of consciousness. We're all looking for the aha, or that's where the princess is. So here's the other nuance of, like, besides like looking for the princess in the Golden Mountain and the Pearl Castle, we have to make sure that in that process is the watering of trees, is that our energy will go up and create an influx of what we call mochin, or levels of consciousness, which is considering the watering of the trees. He's basically saying, do good deeds, learn Torah, okay? We can look in the note here at the bottom. There's a lot there, okay? But I'm not going to get too much into the fact that, the Torah is written, it's a tree of life to those who grasp it. That's one thing. And it's known that it is a tree, the Torah is the tree of life. I'm not going to get into the other ones except for what he says at the last thing. Kabbalistically, the tree is the array of the Sefirot, right? And the water for that tree is actually the human mind. That's an interesting thing that he says. So when it strives to understand God's Torah, okay, that's kind of a different kind of water. But it could end up being like the same thing as the Eitz Chaim depicted, that it's something that comes down and causes things to grow, mainly our consciousness. So here we go, going on in the story, continuing. Okay, the wise man died. You must always water trees. When you wake up in the morning, you're going to go like, I gotta water the trees. He had one son who could not walk. He could stand, but he could not walk. His brothers supported him, giving him enough to live on and over. Good, he had some left over. Little by little, the crippled son saved up some of the leftover money until he had the entire complete sum, a huge considerable sum. He had a lot of money left over. And then what he said, he thought it over. He says, why should I? Let me go into a business myself. Let me start a business of my own. So although he could not walk, okay, what's he going to do? He had a plan. What was his plan? His plan was hire a wagon, a secretary, and a driver. It's almost like very similar to like the Lost Princess, which was he wanted a horse, a servant, and a bag of money, right? And a credit card, right? So he would hire a wagon, a secretary, and a driver. Okay, these just to get briefly, like the body, the intellect. Once again, the body and the intellect, and the driver, the animal soul. That's how. In any case, because we're going to find out who this cripple is, actually. Here, let's look here, actually. Here in the note, in the bottom. Psalm number 1 is something that really never even saw it before. But Psalm number 1, the very beginning words of Psalm number 1 is, fortunate is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. So I looked at that and I started to go over it in Hebrew, and I went, Ashri ha'ish asher lo halach. Fortunate is the man who does not walk. Interesting. What? Right? By the counsel of the wicked, but if you look at just the first words and then cut it, Ashri asher lo halach. Okay? Certain kind of walking. Here we got to investigate who is this son who is called the cripple. So King David relates to it from that first line into Tehillim, that he doesn't walk in the counsel of the wicked. So we're going to see what that means. But, the idea here is, of course, this tale, as he begins in the beginning, is like going to be the idea that because of the knock off all of the evil forces. It says it is said to speak of the mystery of rectification and the destruction of the klipot and the evil forces. That's what it brings. It is the most complex of all stories, this story. So the idea here is he could not stand. There was a major theme that basically we're going to see throughout this story, but even he says this relates to the soul of the Messiah. Interestingly enough, okay, he could not walk, so here he's going to go into a business. He got himself a wagon. Going on in the story, a secretary and a driver. He would travel with them. This is his plan, to Leipzig. Leipzig is like a place where they have a lot of markets. You do business, you buy, you sell. And then, even though he could not walk, he would be able to do some kind of business over there. Okay, great. Sounds like a plan. He told the family, and they were excited, man. What a great idea. Great. We don't have to pay for it anymore. We don't have to give you any more money, right? Nah, they were said, why should we continue to support him? It is better that he earn his own living, because you have to get out of the Namana Kasufa, which is the whole big thing of creation that we really have to still contemplate on. The Namana Kasufa means the bread of shame. I finally found it here because I've been looking for where is the source of the bread of shame. I never saw it in the Ari. Nah, he didn't. The concept to remind people of the bread of shame is Hashem made the creation only to bestow pleasure to another. So instantly was created when he went up in God's will, so to speak, to bestow infinite pleasure to another. Instantly was created a vessel. Something's got to receive the pleasure. We'll call it the universal soul. So it was receiving this pleasure, and finally it turned back to God and says, I can't take it anymore. You made me in your image. Your image is only involved in giving. I want to give something back. I can't take it. I'm ashamed to look at you to receive such pleasure. There's no way. You have to give me a space. So Hashem made a world. He hid himself. The word for world, olam, is elam. Elam means hidden. He hid himself in the world. And then he put us in here. We are all part of that universal soul, to go ahead and earn, or at least think we earn, a place where we can feel that at least we participated to some degree in all of the bestowal of God's goodness that he's going to do upon us. That's called the principle of the bread of shame. It hits a nerve in everybody you tell it to. I tell it to the people who are the most farthest away from any kind of spirituality, but you hit that and all of a sudden they're triggered. Man, I told my nephew this once, okay? My nephew is in California. He has a life there, which is not necessarily 100% in alignment with Torah yet, okay? But in any case, most beautiful neshama ever. And I told it to him, and he woke up, and then he told it to his buddy, and I came over once, and he brought his buddy for me to go ahead and tell it over to him again. It's something that hits the nerve of everybody. The idea, though, really is, when you think about it, no matter what we do, it's never gonna do it. Right? I remember having my Shir Rav, Rabbi David Sackton, talking to him, and he was like, no, you'll never feel the whole bread of shame. He says, no, you don't earn diddly squat. It's all Hashem, right? In other words, you can't give it. There's got to be a way to get out of it. It's going to be amazing to see. In any case, he brings down here that, a person, they say in the Talmud, that a person prefers one measure of his own than 10 measures of his fellows. And that's the concept of the bread of shame. When we earn it ourselves, or at least we feel we participated, somehow our doing Torah and mitzvahs is a place where we could give completion to ourselves, that we become a vessel where we can take part of infinity. That's basically the system of how it's working. So in any case, they were very happy. He had a plan. His family heard it. Great. It's great that you're interested in supporting yourself, because the whole purpose is getting out of the bread of affliction, right? The bread of shame. Bread of affliction is matzah, by the way. Okay, they continue to support him. It's better that he earn his own living. Go get a job. Go work. Go get a job. So they therefore lent him even more money that he would have had before. Now you can make a tremendous business. So the cripple hired a wagon, a secretary, and a driver, and he set out. Now, while they're setting out, or on the road, and the sun has gone down, it's getting dark. Here they're going on the road, and what happens is there's an inn, there's a great hotel there. And the who is it? The secretary says, let's spend the night there. No, we must press on, the cripple said. So the employee says no. And then what happened is they went into the forest and they got lost in the forest. And then what happened was they were attacked by these robbers who came. The band of robbers, let's tell you about these band of robbers. And an interesting, I don't know why Rabbi Nachman has to go into it, but we'll see. This band of robbers originated during a time of famine. A man, he came to the city and he announced that whoever wanted food should come to him. And thus he attracted a lot of men. And he worked very smart. He was very cunning with them, right? He saw people that he couldn't use among the crowd. No, he dismissed them, right? One person, he says, you could be a craftsman, you could work with a mill, you could do this, right? He chose smart guys, intelligent youth. He brought them out to the woods and he told them, guess what your job is? We are going to steal, okay? We're going to become thieves. And from here, he trained them. People traveled in the roadside to Leipzig, right? Breslau and other places, merchants go by. And he says, we'll rob them and we'll amass money. Oh, so it was these robbers that originated from that time, that hang out in the forest all the time. It's their job. It's their profession. Here, these are the ones who attacked the cripple and his men. Now, the driver and the secretary, okay, they got legs. They ran as soon as they saw these robbers coming. But the cripple, he can't go anywhere. He's sitting in the wagon. Here they are, so they come and they're ransacking everything, and they notice, hey, Luca, there's a person in the wagon, right? Right? So they said, what are you doing sitting here? So he says, I can't walk. So, okay, whatever. They took the chest of the money, and they had a lot of money. And the horses, they took the horses, they took everything that way they could. And they left the cripple in the wagon. No horses, no money. Thank God he had a little bit of food for himself, right? The secretary and the driver, what happened with them? They fled to a town. They decided that since they had also taken out loans from the wealthy landowners and now they got ripped off, so if they go home, they're going to get in a lot of trouble. They'll put them in chains. They'll put them in a dungeon. So it would be better to remain in the town, which they had fled, and then we'll just get a job and we're going to hang out here. We're going to disappear. Right? So then we can work as the secretary and the driver and never be discovered. The crippled son, he had some provisions that he had brought from home. As long as he had some dry bread in his wagon, he ate it. But what happened? It got used up after a time. He didn't have anything to eat. What's he going to do? So he thought it over. He says, I got to get out of here. I'm starving. I got to eat something. So he lets himself down the wagon. Now, I don't know, he just listens. This is how the story's going. I know you're thinking these questions like I'm thinking, right? What did he do? How many days? In any case, maybe it was 2 hours. Okay. In any case, he threw as long as, so he lost. Wait a minute. Okay. So he ate everything up. So what did he do? He threw himself down to the wagon where he was able to eat grass. That's it. He spent the night alone in the field. He was very frightened, but he can't move. He can stand up. And there's one point he can't even stand up anymore, I think now. So he just spends the time hanging out there eating grass. An interesting kind of predicament, wouldn't you say so? So he lost all his strength. Now he lost all his strength. He couldn't even stand. He could only crawl. Pushing himself along, he ate the grass around him. As long as he could reach out and eat the grass around him, he would remain in that place until there's no more grass. Right? When there's no more grass, then he had to push himself or pull himself to another spot where he could eat more grass. Further and further, right? He continued to eat grass for some time, and now he was a grass expert. He was expert in the art of weeding grasses. Okay, so he was the PhD. He knew all the grasses, at least in that area. Then one day he came across a certain type of grass that he had never eaten before. interesting. It says here in the footnote here, grass, of course, is animal food. It's a kind of an interesting thing. Rabbi Nachman taught that it is sometimes good to be like an animal. I have to look into that one. I know sometimes it's good to be like a crazy person, like King David. He got out of a lot of trouble. Okay. In any case, a certain type of grass. There are grasses. Here he says something interesting that I did look in the Zohar in this section, because the footnote intrigued me a little bit. He says there are certain types of grasses with spiritual powers, and that comes from the Zohar in Exodus. There was a tale there where there was these people who were traveling, and they noticed this Gentile who was cutting these herbs, and they tried to get his attention and speak to him, and he wouldn't answer them. He wouldn't talk to them. And he put the herbs, and then he started walking with him. And then he says, "You guys are in a lot of trouble. I see you came across something that's going to infect you, and you guys are going to die here. I want you to take this, and you'll get better." And he healed them with some grasses that he had. And they ended up following him to a place. Like, I can understand this. But anyways, they ended up following him, and a lot of weird things happened with this Gentile. It was from there that he said that they came back and told Reb Shimon about this guy, the master of herbs. And he said, yeah, some grasses have spiritual powers. Boom. That was all. So in any case, there is a Zohar that says it. And it'd be interesting to find out what those grasses are. Those who know or already investigated, maybe you could share it with me. Okay. I could have some ideas, but we're just going to leave it at that. Okay. In any case, going on in the story. So he pulled this certain type of grass. He'd never seen it before. This grass looked appealing. He had eaten grass for so long that he was familiar with all of the types of grasses around here, but he had never seen a grass like this. He made up his mind that he would pluck it out, root and all. I'm going to eat this whole thing, root and all, because this looks like it's such a special grass. And what happened was, when he plucked it out, under the plant, in the roots, was swinging a diamond stuck in the roots. That's what it says here. Under the root there was a diamond. That's what I'm assuming. He plucked the whole thing out, and there was this shiny diamond. And then on the diamond, it was like in the shape of a square. And each side of the square, follow me now, had a different power. One side, it was written that whoever grasped that side, listen to my words. If you thought the Lost Princess was trippy and the Master of Prayer was trippy, just wait, okay? So here he pulls out this grass, and there's a diamond swinging, and there's words written on. There's 4 sides. It's like a cube, I guess. 4 sides. I don't know about how you do 4 sides. It's a cube, 6 sides. Okay. So in any case, in each one there's an inscription on the side, different sides of each one of those sides. And on one side, it says here, on one side, it was written that whoever grasped that side, it would be foolish for them to return home, since they will be put together, that is, where the sun and the moon meet. This is something worth meditating on. We're going to go back here and read the notes, but just the wildness of it, okay? When the cripple uprooted the grass, concealing the diamond, it turned out that he was grasping that side of the stone. In other words, he grasped the stone and he grasped that side of it. Don't you need 2 hands to grasp? Grasp that side. You don't grasp with one, because if you're grasping it, you're also grasping the other side of the stone. It's just, these are just questions. Sorry to mess. It's just like, you're just grasping it with one. So it's called the thumb grasp. It's grasp with the thumb, just the thumb. Any case, that's the side. Okay, so he grasped that side of the stone. Boom. It lifted him up, and it transported him to the place where day and night meet. He looked around and saw that this was the place where the sun and the moon come together. What? This is really cool. Okay. But we're going to get into this because this is really deep metaphor. He heard the sun and the moon speaking. Check this out. The sun was, there's a tree that has many branches, each with its own fruit and leaves. Every single branch, fruit, and leaf of this tree has its own special power. One has the power to grant children to the childless, while another has the special power to grant livelihood. One has the power to heal one's sickness, and the others have power to heal different sicknesses, each one with its own different power. What a marvelous tree that is. And interestingly enough, we were talking about the prophecy that in the end of days, there'll be a trickle of water that will be coming from the Holy of Holies. It will drip down from the Holy of Holies all the way down the Kidron Brook and all the way to the Dead Sea, sweetening the water of the Dead Sea. They say that this water that is going to be coming will have tremendous healing properties, and the fruits, the trees that grow next to it, and the herbs also will have healing properties. What a tree. In any case, each one of these trees, what a tremendous, awesome tree. It kind of this rings into my mind, this idea of Shari Ora, right? By Rabbi Yosef Gikatia, who was like of the 1st century, who was, an Italian Kabbalist, Gikatia, Gikatalia. Sorry, that's how my father-in-law pronounced it, Gikatalia, okay? In any case, he wrote an incredible parable of a palace, follow me, a palace in which each one of the rooms of this palace had special energies or gifts or things that it bestows, right? So, and the idea here is each one of these chambers, if you want X, the problem with, you have to know which door to go to, right? So he says that's the problem with tefillah and using the names of God. You have to know which names are going to power or which blessing. Is it children healing? Is it this? Is it that? So the very same thing in terms of a different mashal. But here it's used as a tree. The sun is saying, oh, there's this tree. It's the most amazing tree. It's the most amazing. I don't want to do it. It's a great tree. It's an amazing tree. It works very well. Okay. That's your Trump imitation. Okay. This tree must be watered. If it were watered, it would have all of these great powers. But not only, the sun says, do I not water it, but when I shine on it, I'm drying it up. What a drag. This tree, what it can do for the world, what it could do for humanity. So I wonder what the sun is. Okay, we'll get into it. Let's just finish the conversation here. The moon replied, you are worried about the concerns of others because the tree heals the world. Let me tell you my problem, the moon says. I have 1,000 mountains, and around these mountains, there are another 1,000 mountains. This is the place of the demons. The demons have feet like chickens, and they therefore don't have any strength in their feet. See, we're seeing a theme here. It should be tickling inside of your psyche. The cripple, no feet. Here you're talking about demons, no feet, right? The moon has a problem with its feet. A lot of feet motion here. And just to cut to the chase in terms of giving you a little idea, something to give you a little bit of a morsel, that we look at humanity and the history of humanity many times, like in the dream of Daniel. The history comes in the form of a man, like the head of the earlier generations. The torso is the mid generations. The feet, we call it ikvasa de Mashiach, which means the footsteps or the heels of the Messiah. So like we're in the bottom of the barrel. We're in the bottom of history, the end of history. And so feet are a very significant thing. Also in Kabbalah, we bring that down. Raglecha yoredes maves, the Shechina, her feet go down into death. We got issues, feet issues. Okay. So in any case, the moon is saying, I got these mountains and the thousands. The demons have feet like chickens, and they don't have any strength in their feet. They pull nourishment from my feet. The moon has feet. They pull nourishment from my feet. Sure, I see it all the time. They pull nourishment from my feet. And because of this, I don't have any strength in my own feet. I have a powder, he says, which is a remedy for my feet, but a wind comes and blows away the powder. I wonder what kind of wind that is. Okay, so that's what the moon says. We got the sun drying up the tree, and we got the moon's the feet. She doesn't have that. The wind blows away the only powder that she has, and because the demon, I got problems. That's what the moon says. I got feet problems. Can we imagine? Do we imagine that? How can we figure that out in terms of our own challenges in this generation, in terms of our emunah? So the idea really is that's what the heel is where the only place you can really get the real good best emunah. I'm talking about the best emunah, okay, is only in the heel. Because why? The heel doesn't have any senses. The heel, am I saying it right? The heel doesn't have any senses. And so the only sense that you have to develop is this inner sense of use the false Luke. You got to turn off the computer, and use the force. You have to connect from the inner. Everybody's going in that direction. It's the only way to go. I'm telling you. We don't have any way we can rely. There's nobody to rely on except our Father in heaven, period. I asked people in the north, and they're like, what's going on up there in the north? Displacements, 200 missiles. My friend, my associate was in Sfad. He had to be in a bomb shelter because they got missiles. I didn't hear anybody was hurt. I don't know where the missiles landed. I don't know enough of that. Fires blazing, people displaced. Are we going to go in? Can we go in? How to go in? They say it's a lost cause. They said there's no way. People said only HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be able to. Even the secular are saying there is a God. Hashem's got to protect us, and Hashem's got to bring us through all of this. This is our feet. This is our feet. Okay, continuing the conversation. The sun now retorts to the moon and says, is that your worried? Answered the sun. I can't believe. I mean, it's very interesting how it says if you're going to where the sun and the moon meet, and it's like you're the first time they're meeting. It's like, well, you guys never met each other? In any case, is that your worry? Answered the sun. I'll tell you a cure. There is a highway with many roads branching off from it. We are not going to get to the answers of all of these today, folks. You're just going to have to let it just permeate your subliminal mind and just work on you. Is that your worry? Answered the sun. I'll tell you a cure. There is a highway with many roads branching off from it. Highway, branching off. Okay. One of these, I guess, branch off is the path of the righteous. When a person is righteous, some dust from this path is sprinkled under every step he takes. Every time he takes a step, he walks on that powder. Then there's the powder of the atheist. If a person is an atheist, some powder from this path is scattered under every step he takes. There is another path of the insane. If a person is insane, dust from this path is sprinkled under him. There are also many other paths. There is also a path for the righteous person who accepts suffering upon themselves. Righteous people who accept suffering upon themselves. The wealthy landowners lead them in chains, and they do not have any strength in their feet. Some powder from this path is scattered under their feet, and this gives their feet strength. And it will be a remedy for your feet. I think this is the last page, okay? We'll just do a little bit more. So the cripple heard all of this. He's listening to this wonderful conversation. He then looked at the other side of the diamond, and he saw written that if one grasps that side, one will be transported to the highway from which many paths emanate. So what did he do? And it immediately transported him to the highway with the path that veer off. Immediately, here we go. Here we go. Now here comes a big turning point in the entire rest of the story. The cripple now puts his feet on that path, and he's totally healed. Now what's he going to do? He then took powder from all of the paths, and he tying it into bundles. He made one bundle of powder of the path of the righteous. That was a single one little pouch. And then he did the same with the powders of all the other paths. So he had a whole bunch of these powders from these different paths. Bizarro. How interesting. I'm starting to think, what is this about? In any case, he took them all. Then he decided to go back to the forest where he had been robbed. When he came there, he chose a tall tree near the path along where the robbers went out to go ahead and do their plundering. He took some of the powder of the righteous, and he took some of the powder of the insane, mixed them together, and he scattered it on the path. Then he climbed the tree, and he sat there waiting to see what would happen. A group of robbers came who had been sent out by their leader to plunder, set out. They came to that path, and as soon as they stepped on the powder, they became righteous. They saw the light. They go, oh my gosh, I see the light. I see what we have to do. I see the righteous path. I want to be a good person. They began to cry out for their souls since they had previously robbed and killed so many people. However, because this powder was mixed with the powder of the insane, they became insane righteous. Do you see any of those? No, we can't. I'm sorry. It's very hard to even come up with a clue of such a thing, right? The insane righteous, the insane saints. They began to fight with one another and says, well, it was your fault that we stole. Why we didn't say hello to him? I didn't do it, right? So you caused us to steal. It was you. They're blaming each other. And this went on until they all killed each other. They're all dead. The leader sent out another group. The same thing happened. Then they killed each other just as before. This happened again until all the robbers were killed. The ex-cripple realized that none of the robbers remained except the leader and, of course, one other man. He's got to have his right-hand man. So the ex-cripple, you probably don't have this. You might. The ex-cripple climbed down from the tree. He swept away the powder that he had placed on the path because is anybody going to use this broom? Okay, in the middle of the forest. Okay, don't ask me. Okay. Leaves. The powder that had the path that he put on the path, and then he spread pure powder of the righteous only powder, and then he went and sat in the tree. The head robber was curious, since he had sent out all of his robbers, and not a single one had returned. He therefore set out with the one that remained with him, and as soon as he came to the path where the ex-cripple had scattered the pure powder, the powder of the righteous, he became an instant saint. He began to cry out for his soul to his companion because he had killed so many people and he had robbed so much property. He tore out graves and repented with grave remorse. Tore out graves. I'm going to say maybe he dug a grave and sat in it, right? And he repented the great remorse. The ex-cripple who was sitting in the tree heard that the great robber was so remorseful and repentant. He climbed down from the tree. Seeing him, the robber began to cry out, my soul, help me. I have committed so many crimes. Give me a way to repent. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Can you hear me?
Happy Father's Day to you.
Happy Father's Day to you. Okay.
We're getting ready to go to lunch, I think.
Okay. We're still in the middle of the story. I don't know if you have the sheets. So when the ex-cripple was sitting there, so as soon as the robber saw him, he says, you got to help me. You got to help me. What can I do? What can I do? So he says, give me back the chest that you stole from me. That's number one. Okay. So, and the next thing, so the robber, he kept a record of everything, every time, place, and every place of person that he stole from, right? All the victims. I will return to you immediately, said the chief robber, and I will even give you all of the other wealth that I've stolen. Just give me a means of coming back, of returning. So he says, there is only one way that you can repent, said the ex-cripple. He says, he's called the ex-cripple now, right? It's like X-Men. You must go to the city and confess. I am the one who made the announcement way back then. I caused many men to come and follow me into the forest, and I trained them how to rob and kill people. It is me. I am the one who did that. So the chief robber gave him all of his treasures to the cripple. He went into the city. He did exactly what the cripple had told him to do. And of course, they sentenced him and hanged him as an example. Don't do this. Okay. Now we're going to stop right there just because we have to recap and put some things into perspective in terms of our story. So we have the cripple. The cripple decides to go on a job on his own to make his own business. I have another idea of who this very interesting place in the Tikkun Zohar. Actually, it is in Tikkun Samech Tet, Daf Kuf Gimel. It speaks about a lot of times, we have to think about things that influence us. Where do our thoughts come from? There are souls that actually come and help people. They attach to a person's soul. We call this an ibur. So there are souls that come and visit many sages, and there are people that visit it all the time. And usually we don't even recognize it because it looks like they're regular people. Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach tells that story and says, you just never know who's around you, who's in the room, who's on the street, who you just never know. Bottom line, you just got to treat all of creation with respect, except for the enemies. Okay. So, but he wants to talk about here in this passage of the Zohar as what we call the Bale Kabim. Bale Kabim are peg legs. Instead of legs, they don't have legs. They have peg legs. They're called Bale Kabim because they don't have legs. Who are these people? She says, Sheyesh makom began Eden. There is a place in the lower Garden of Eden that there stands these aspects of these 7 kings of the land of Canaan that died. In other words, 7 huge primordial vessels. That we learned about this when we studied Kabbalah, about the 7 primordial kings that died. And their pieces fell to the worlds below of Abriya, Yetzirah, and Asiya. And even in the lower Garden of Eden, right, there are certain aspects of these 7 kings that still need to be rectified. They still need to, the good still needs to be pulled out of them. How are they in the Garden of Eden, lower Garden of Eden? I don't know. This is what it says. That these kings, they get their shefa from 3 miluim of Absagma, from certain names of God, which are really, well, just look at it as just certain names of God. This is in the spiritual realm. This is how we get our energy, believe it or not, are from the name. So they get their energy from the names of God, right? That together, if you add up the names of the permutations of these names of God that give sustenance to this and to these vessels in the lower Garden of Eden, it adds up to the number of Kaf Beit, which is 102, which is the letter for like peg leg. Okay, therefore, these neshamos of these righteous that are found there, also they get their same shefa, they get their abundance, their influx, their energy, also from the lights of these seven vessels. Therefore, that's why these souls in the Garden of Eden are called peg legs. Now, when they come to this world, and they do come to this world as an influence, they need to dress in the form of those who are crippled, who go with peg legs, to hint according to where they come from. In other words, basically, souls in the Garden of Eden, type of nourishment from this certain place in Garden of Eden that I guess not everybody can get. And then it comes time for them where they got to go ahead and come into the world for whatever influence people. So they come in, and the only way that they can come in, because they took energy or ate from plate one. Let's see that. They ate from plate 102. Because they ate from plate 102 and they have to go to this world, they have to dress without legs. Interestingly enough. But I don't know if every single person that you're going to see without legs is one of them. But you never know. Okay. But just to give you the idea of an energy for we're dealing with this person who was a peg leg. Like, of course, they knew he was a neshama coming from that place, and he shared with them all kinds of secrets of the universe. So that was another idea that I want to share to you in terms of what the cripple is, that it's a neshama that comes into this world and influences. But this influence is going to be really, look at it also for our intents and purposes. You could look at it too also in your own personal life. Everybody could look at themselves as the cripple. Everybody could look at themselves as if that one place in their lives where they just can't move forward, because the legs are supposed to carry us into the future. So we could look at it personally within ourselves at the cripple. Who is the cripple? Right? The cripple is those places in our lives where we're so stuck. We just can't seem to move. The powder, but we don't even know that there is such a powder. So, and we'll talk more about the peg leg later. There was something else I wanted to share with you, which was the idea, what was it, of the powder. We can see that the powder is very far out. We're not going to get into the conversation of the sun and the moon now, but we see that here, this person who was once, he's now the ex-cripple. Yeah, he was the ex-cripple. He got hold of some powders and he puts it, and wherever he puts it, those people are going to behave in a certain way. This is kind of really bizarre, because as I was thinking of this, and we're going to investigate a little bit more into these powders, but obviously the soul of the Mashiach has the ability to influence the thoughts of other people, because he puts the powder down and all of a sudden the guy gets righteous, or he becomes an insane righteous, or whatever. So the idea here is of spreading the powder could be this kind of an influence of thoughts, because obviously it starts in the thoughts, these powders that he spread, that he was able to transform people. Some people a little bit less transformed than the others. Okay, they all end up dead. Okay, maybe there's a positive side to these powders. Anything good these powders do? Okay, in any case, we're going to end now. But just like a little bit of a recap, that we're going to see what the power of these feet are, because the whole theme that we're discussing here has a lot to do with feet, and with the feet of existence. We have which is like the Ikfas of the Mashiach, right? The moon has the feet that has all kinds of, as we learn that, So we're going to deal with in terms of how we rectify the feet, which is basically right now, our geula, our redemption coming. Okay, we're going to stop now. That was part one of the cripple.